Oh, how are you doing, folks? It's Bob Gums with the Concerned Forum speaking to you from Kampala, Uganda. How are we doing this evening? Especially to my peoples back in New York City, right, my hometown. And as you might notice, I try to keep it down a little bit, but I play my Billy Joel. I love that guy. I mean, he really puts me back on the streets of New York every time I listen to him. And so we get it straight. Uganda is a wonderful place, but I'm still homesick for a real pizza, a real Reuben sandwich, things like that. Okay, what are we doing here? Well, first thing I want to start off with is saying, yeah, New Yorkers, you need to support Mamdami. Straight up, no chaser. But I just want to move aside from that for a bit. Now, I'm really ticked off. I'm ticked off that a lot of our elected office serving Democrats. Now, I'm a registered Democrat. I'm also a member of DSA. I'm proud to say that I'm progressive and triply proud to say I am woke. Okay. But I'm kind of disappointed. I think that our elected Democratic leaders need to get up off the pot or leave the room. Now we have Jack Smith. You remember Jack Smith? He was the guy that was investigating Trump in the first term for illegalities. Now it seems that he's being persecuted, not prosecuted, but being persecuted by Trump's Department of Justice. Why are they calling it the Department of Justice nowadays is beyond me because they definitely don't seem to be interested in putting out justice. It seems like this second Trump term is like a revenge tour. I didn't see that anywhere when Sister Mary St. Raphael at St. Thomas the Apostle in Harlem used to teach us about the Constitution and what government's supposed to do and not supposed to do. So I wish that you elected Democratic officials would check into that, especially mine. I'm from Harlem, but I was living in the Bronx for about the last 6, 7, well, about 6 years or so. And Richie Torres is my congressperson. And I found out a few things over the last 2 days, which really kind of rocked me back. I found out that this young gentleman was getting almost $1 million from APAC. And that really has me wondering. You're from the poorest district in the United States. Yeah, the Bronx is the poorest district, at least our part of the Bronx. Okay. I'm trying, I have a real difficult time grasping that. You have, these city council people representing that section of the Bronx. You have Congress people representing that part of the Bronx, and yet we're the poorest people in the country. So that puts us right up there with Mississippi when it comes to poverty. I think that's a damn shame. Maybe we need to spend less time helping Israel commit genocide and more time taking care of the people of the Bronx. And so that we don't get it confused, yes, I think the Epstein scandal is a disgrace. It needs to be investigated. And yes, Congressman Torres, it is quite important because we as Americans need to realize that a great mistake was made in 2016. We put a man in the White House that has no character. And I think a lot of folks out there need to fess up and admit that. Okay. Now, those of us who are native New Yorkers, it doesn't come as any surprise to us I mean, I've been watching Trump's antics since I was 13 years old. Okay, uh, the man is. Well, how can you say he's no good? I mean, he's sitting in the White House with what 30, 31 different convictions. Plus, he tried to overthrow our democratic form of government. Uh, I don't get it. And I want somebody to tell me that Kamala Harris would have done a worse job than what Donald Trump is doing now. Oh, and this little business about, oh, well, the lady gave you the figures on unemployment and what have you. And what did you do? You fired her. I mean, I think that's taking killing the messenger to a whole new level, quite frankly. And I'm just wondering when and or if American people are ever going to start to wake the hell up and get woke. And I love this Republican Party, this new Republican Party, because I am the child of two black rock ribbed Republicans. My dad was the vice president for the Morningside Heights Republican Club right there in Harlem. Uh, my mom's was an activist under the Republican banner. My dad was a union leader. He was the shop steward for a factory of which he was a excuse me, he was a shipping clerk. So there's not an elitist bone in my body. So you might ask, well, what happened to all the black folks in the Republican Party? Well, those that had any kind of self-respect, they were basically no, in no uncertain terms, they were told that, if you weren't willing to play the sambo, that you weren't welcome. That's why you see even Colin Powell, he left them. And, I think for those black folks, especially those in entertainment, I think you need to wake the hell up. I mean, yeah, you got big money and blah, blah, blah. Um, I think that big money can be dangerous when it causes you to forget where the hell you came from, and when it also causes you not to pay attention to what the hell is going on. I got a real problem with any black man or woman that supports a party that thinks it's okay to walk through the Pentagon and tear the pictures and paintings of black war heroes who gave blood for this country off the wall. If I was a white American, I would be doubly leery of trusting in anything a black Republican had to say, because how can you trust people who have no respect or love for themselves? See, but that's me. Um, Let me see what else I got written down here. Um, Another problem that I see we have is that we got government by insanity. Okay, logic is out of the window. And I would say to elected officials and judges, someday you're going to have to really explain to your children or grandchildren why you stood by and watched your democracy go down the toilet and why you were a part of it. You judges, you know the law, right? We have something called the Constitution. And if you can read and write, at least above the sixth grade level, tells you what you're supposed to do, what's not, and what is supposed to happen. And I think that a lot of judges, now you have some good judges out there, but a lot of judges, they need to get up off the dime. Yeah. What's the sense of being a judge if you're going to let this guy Trump and his bully boys basically treat you like a damn puppet, as we see what's happening with the Supreme Court? Yeah. And, something else too. We're going back into a time like in the 1920s, right? Uh, we had this thing about, oh, well, you can't trust this particular ethnic or racial group. In the 20s, the big thing was Italians, right? They said Italians, they weren't white people, and that you couldn't trust them. As a matter of fact, the only significant cases of lynching, especially in the South, beside Black Americans in Louisiana, it was Italian Americans in the 1890s. Look it up. It's in the history books. And it's funny. I see a guy like what's the name of that clown governor they got in Florida. Uh, he has a lot of vowels in his name. And what was Trump called? Ron DeSantis, the sanctimonious. I understand that originally his grandmother was afraid that they wouldn't let him in the country because he was pregnant at the time, which I think would be wrong and stupid. But the woman had to hide her pregnancy. Now her grandson or great grandson is building concentration camps in the swamps of Florida for people who basically came to this country trying to do the same thing that he was able to do. And the same thing with our so-called Secretary of State. I am so pissed off with him that I don't even want to mention his name. Uh, Listen, a lot of you out there, all you O'Haras, right? All you Carusos and what have you, remember what it was when you folks came over here. And please, I don't need this bullshit about this. As long as they're legal, bullshit. Okay? Pure bullshit. I think I mentioned the other night, Joe DiMaggio, the great baseball hero. His mother she was here for like what, 30 some odd years. She could never hardly speak a word of English. But see, the thing about when you're dealing with racism, it's a thing like people have selective memory. Okay. And I don't think that here in the 21st century, I just don't think we have time for that bullshit. I'll be quite frank about it. And I see that, this thing that Donald, his beautiful bill, right? And I'm like asking, what the hell is wrong with people? What the hell is wrong with our elected officials? You pass a bill that only really benefits 20% of the population? What about the other 80%? I don't get it. I think Jeff Daniels put it better than I ever could. And he said, what the hell, what did he say exactly? Something to the effect that, 'cause I had written it down here. Yeah, how do you do that? How do you vote for somebody that's a criminal? The idea of a black Asian woman scared you that much? A black Asian United States senator was too much for you to handle? So you said, okay, bring in the thief. And I hear this nonsense about, oh, well, she really didn't have I heard the policies. I sat there, I looked, I listened. I know she wanted to help young people try and get homes. I haven't heard anything like that. I didn't hear anything like that out of Trump, but you flushed her away. And I think that the problem that Democrats have is because right now we're busy beating up on ourselves. I'm not a politician. I'm not running for office. So I guess I could say this. I think that maybe you need to tell the American people that they need to take a good look in the mirror. Now, I know back in the 1840s, 1850s, the abolitionists used to say that, and people called them nanny, finger waving, and all this kind of bullshit, right? But in the end, I believe that the abolitionists turned out to be right. And I think the main problem that you have in the Democratic Party now is a lack of guts. Now, am I saying that every elected Democrat is a gutless wonder? No, I'm not saying that. Because you do have some shining stars. In the district next to mine, you have a shining star. Now, you may differ on occasion with her vote or two, but she stands up and she fights for working class people because she remembers that she herself was a working class person. And see, that's the kind of people that we need. And I would also tell Barack Obama, you're one of the most gifted speakers that we have seen on the political arena since Jack Kennedy. But you need to be out there more, and you need to speak more. Elected Democrats need to back him up because, as I said, you have a mad tyrant sitting in the White House who swears he wants to try and get Obama for treason. He hasn't specified what the charges are, but I guess Obama sentenced because of the fact that A, he was the first black president, and two, because he has on occasion criticized Donald Trump and his policies. So I guess that's enough to be accused of treason in Donald Trump's America. And you elected Democrats need to get up off your ass and make a point of speaking out for Jack Smith, for Barack Obama. And it was a gentleman that he was in Trump's first fiasco. I mean, first administration. And now, because he broke away from Trump, uh, Trump seems to be harassing him and his family. You need to start standing up and speaking out for people like that. And you have to basically lay it like it is. You know, a lot of people who are wrapped up in this Republican Party of today, it's a cult. It's not a political party. We're not talking politics anymore. You have a president of the United States that thinks it's perfectly okay for him to threaten the lives of judges, okay, who feels that he can go to a particular state and say, listen, I want you to rig the election for my benefit. And we must never forget the Republican Party of today, okay, is responsible for this fiasco, is responsible for this torching of the United States Constitution. And we should never let them forget it, right? I don't know why Republicans bother running for office. Why are you going to run in 2026? What the hell are you running for? You don't believe in democracy. You don't believe in the people's right to rule themselves. So what the hell are you running for? They need to be questioned upon that, right? They need to be held account. I'm willing to be held account for the things I say. Why can't they? Seriously. You want to follow that twisted draft dodging bastard? That's on you. All right. And the American people need to start getting real. That jobs report that Trump is so upset about. Hey man, that's a foretelling of doom, right? You cannot stand up in the 21st century and think that you can push and bully your way with the rest of the planet. It's not going to happen. What will happen is a economic disaster for the average working American. Well, I don't have to tell you that. You don't have to believe me. Go out there, do some shopping, believe your own eyes. And this is August. I'm curious to see how people are going to react in September when they start this back to school stuff, right? If we do have any school, I'm talking about public schools. I'm not talking about the fortunate few that can go to, private schools. Okay, and I really would like to know because I found out about my congressman just about what's the day? Today is Saturday. And I found out about that Thursday or Friday. I mean, it's gotten to the point where they don't even want to hear from me in Congressman Torres's office. Every time I put my address down, they say, "Oh, well, you're not in the district." I've sent them copies of what their app says. They told me, well, I get little emails back. Please uh, go to the app that tells me I'm not in the man's district, and it's like a circle, like a catch 22. So, hey, Torres, if you hear me, I'm sorry, brother, but you guys did me wrong. Number one, number two, I'm very concerned, not just about Democrats, but those who call themselves Republicans. Why? The amount of money that APAC is sending to our Congress people is huge, and it's a disgrace. Governor of Arkansas was a Huckabee, right? And her dad is the American ambassador to Israel. Think about that. Arkansas is like a deep southern state where people are practically starving. The healthcare is a joke. The educational system is a joke in terms of, upward economic viability. That's a freaking joke. The main thing they seem to deal with is, racism, which is basically the South. Okay, my life sucks, so it's the fault of the black folks, and it's the fault of them damn brown people coming from south of the border. That is the mentality, and in a mentality like that, this woman who is the governor. Oh, hold on a second now. Hold on a second. It seems that this administration wants to send the domestic use of the U.S. military. Okay, all throughout America. Now, if that doesn't look like some type of dictatorial takeover, I don't know what does. And again, where are our elected officials to call a halt to this madness? I don't get it. And what the hell you got? What did you get elected for? There was even this one guy, the Republican cat, right? This clown talks about because they have this thing. I'm surprised that it's being done by that kid. The what's the name of that congressman from Missouri, right? He came up with this. I don't particularly care for him. He was the one when they were, storming the Capitol. He walked, giving the fist bump, and then 5 minutes later, you saw him running his scared ass down the hallway. But he came up with a good one, talking about stock trading and all this kind of bullshit. And you have a Republican, and of course you have Trump, because Trump he's about money. If nothing else, he is about money. And so Trump is supposed to be mad at this cat, right? Because he's like, well, hey, man, if you want to be in public service and make all kinds of money with, the stock market and this, that, and the other, have at it. Uh, that's wrong. Okay, for a whole lot of reasons. Because you're not elected so that you could have a better financial advantage over the people that elected you. Not to digress, but I've often wondered how in the hell can any elected official vote against some type of national health care? You know what kind of health care a representative or a senator gets? Man, you talk about Cadillac. And here it is. These people who have this Cadillac, they're stripping, 17 million Americans out of their health care. And see, that's the thing that really troubles me about a lot of working class Americans. Why in the hell do you vote for people that don't give a damn about your economic interest? I don't get it. And before we get into the racial thing, listen, if you had a congressman from, say, New York or New Jersey, right, who said, well, we're going to make it to only black people and Latino people can have national health care. Listen, somebody did that. I will be out in the street fighting along with white working class people. But nobody's doing that. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's trying to take anything from you. But you feel that you have to run out and vote for these people that don't give a damn about your own, your own family financial interest. And then you listen to them as they say, well, yeah, the problem is them black folks or them dark immigrants. Just like Trump said that my grandmother steals dogs and cats and eats them. My father was born in the American Virgin Islands. His mother, however, came from Haiti, who died shortly after he was born. His father was from the Dominican Republic. Okay? I was born in New York City. My mother, nice lady from Virginia, Central Virginia. Her family goes back about 1690. So family legend. As a matter of fact, some of her people supposedly worked on building Jefferson's Monticello. But Donald Trump thinks that somehow, because he's a Caucasian, he's a better American than I am. And his family's only been here since about 1890 something. So, plus the fact that his wife is an illegal immigrant because she lied on her visa coming in here. She got an Einstein visa, right? You tell me what is genius or brilliant about his wife. I don't ordinarily talk about people's wives, but she brought that on herself because in the last election, she decided that she was going to stick her nose into our politics and say that Obama was not born in the United States. So, as far as I'm concerned, she can open herself up to any damn criticism that people have to make about her. Very fair. You know, does that make Barron an anchor baby? Why? The thought that she came over here on a bullshit visa, right? And then proceeded to bring her mom and dad and the whole family over, right? And have a kid by Donald here in the United States. Does that make her an anchor baby? You tell me. You figure it out. And see, that's how that's how, especially with the Democrats, that's how our elected officials need to start talking. Okay? You don't, at any point, trying to talk nice to a bully. Okay? Hell, you should have learned that in schoolyard. You stand up when the son of a bitch is trying to, walk over you, whether that be Jimmy in the schoolyard or the present uh, person that you have sitting in the White House. And also character counts. I might have mentioned that earlier, but yeah, it does. Because Donald Trump, growing up in New York, all we see is this guy parading his woman around, right? Parading around here. He's the hottest thing that ever hit New York City. Okay? Make you believe, faking that he was like a public relations guy trying to, give out to newspapers, hey, Donald Trump is really a great guy and blah, 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 blah. Come on, man. I'm trying to figure out how the hell could a kid became a millionaire like at 8 years old because of his dad. What the hell does he know about working class economics? Right? He's against the minimum wage in this country. People see this is what happens. Racism, bigotry, that shit makes you ignorant. Okay? It makes you ignorant. Because all you were thinking is, hey, this guy, he hates the same people I hate. That's what happened this last election. And you put in a criminal. Now I'm born and raised in Harlem. Believe me, when you get busted, you go to the court, even if you're lucky enough to avoid jail, guilty, boom, you are a criminal. You are labeled a criminal. And it's not any different for the President of the United States. That was supposed to be the beauty of our democracy. Whether every man is equal before the law. I think that we have gotten away from that. And we better get back to it pretty damn quick. Now, something else I want to, what else I want to interject here? Ah, yeah. As Jeff Daniels said, I couldn't remember his exact quote a little earlier, but now I can see it here. As Jeff says, for you folks out there that voted for Trump, how did you not see this? How did you not see that this would end in disaster? I can't, I'm with Jeff Daniels on that one. I don't understand how you could not see it, right? Unless you were so full of hate, envy, perhaps jealousy, that you just wanted everything to blow up. It's the only reason I can see, and quite frankly. Yeah, just like he blew up Atlantic City. Talk to the people, talk to the people in Atlantic City how great Donald Trump was. Huh? Talk to the people that have worked, but you didn't even bother. And I'll be honest about you folks out there in the Midwest and down south, mm, you disgrace this country the worst because you don't know a damn thing about Donald Trump and you didn't care. The only thing you heard was, oh, immigrants. And that's it. Some of y'all walking around there like you and your family and your great great grands descended from heaven. you know? No, you didn't. Okay, your people came from Europe, most of them desperate and hungry and looking for a break. And they were quite happy to take the land that other people have been living on for thousands of years. Uh, oh my God. Oh my. Something else has popped up about police and the black community. Naturally, it's nothing positive, but I don't want to. I don't want to interrupt myself too much. But yeah, baby, that's what's happening. You know, you you talk all this stuff about patriotism and whatnot, and you put a guy in the White House that says he wants to burn up the Constitution, and then you expect the rest of the world to look at you and say, "Well, America is not a racist nation." Listen, your race, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. I don't care. It's just like Martin Luther King said, listen, I can't make you love me or love Latinos or love Asians or love indigenous people. I don't, hey, baby, that's on you. If you want to walk through life being blind, being asleep, you think woke is a bad word, that's on you. Okay? But just like King said, hey, listen, law can't make you be a decent human being. But the law is supposed to be there to protect me, okay? Me and every damn body else. And see, I'm worried now because we seem to be getting away from that. We these elected officials, I like to ask every Democrat, why are you not putting a bill in Congress that will, number one, stop ICE from getting the money that Trump is trying to give them? Also, why in the hell don't you strip the authority away from ICE? See, here goes the thing. There was never an immigration problem to begin with, not the massive level that Trump was talking about. What there was is definitely a department, right, that was overworked, understaffed, okay? And that should have been dealt with. That is what needed to be dealt with. I can readily say that because look at the amount of people that they are snatching up off the street. And American citizens, right? Listen, if anybody tries to put hands on you or take you somewhere, as far as I'm concerned, in America, you have a right to defend yourself. The community has a right to protect itself. Okay? You don't send stormtroopers into any American community. You got that little boy-headed freak up there. What is it, Stephen, whatever? Steve, screw it. Which, by the way, it's funny because if it wasn't for his people coming over here as terrified, scared immigrants, they would have wound up in Hitler's gas chamber. See, that's how ridiculous we're getting, right? We got a president. Did he ever marry an American woman? Number one. Number two, his present wife, as I said, she came over. She came into this country under a false pretense. And if I'm wrong, prove that she did not come here under an Einstein visa. And tell me what she did, what superlative athletic accomplishment, what superlative intellectual accomplishment, right? Did she write a book? Is she an economist or something? So how did she get that? And then you're going to hunt people now? Oh my God! It's a bit. It's just too damn much. Number one, and then this is what really ticks me off. This guy Trump, he's going to stick his nose into what's going on in Africa and talk about trade and everything like that. He has nothing but contempt for African people. He has proven that. What did he call Africa? Collection of shithole countries. Those are his words, not mine. And then you want to talk, about doing trade? Listen, my opinion, I wouldn't let him have donuts. Seriously. And because America has spent the last 25 odd years fighting stupid wars, right? You have burned out your economy. And you don't seem to realize it's ain't 1946 or 47. It's a whole new world, trying to tell Brazil what to do. Do as we say, or we'll slap a big tariff on you. There's a book, been out for a long time, Donald. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think maybe you need to read that. Okay? Now, let me see what else I got here as we wrap this up. Ah, Mr. Governor Shapiro. All right, because I had to get that off my chest. Okay? But talking about the New York elections, Governor Shapiro, what are you smoking? All right? I mean, apparently you're smoking better shit than we did back in the day. You're trying to accuse Mamdami, and if not directly, you're trying to accuse his supporters of being anti-Semite. I think since I started doing the concern forum, I do believe I've expressed quite vocally and sometimes quite loudly how I feel about anti-Semites. And I believe that Mr. Mamdami feels the same way. I believe I said something to the effect that they need to be hung up by their ankles and their pants ripped off and be whipped on their testicles for the afternoon. Okay, that's how I feel about anti-Semites, which also makes me wonder. Your president, Trump, he entertained anti-Semites in our house, the White House. Or have you forgotten that? Okay. Mr. Trump also said that he felt that Nazis, their basic plank is anti-Semitism. He was the one that said that they were good people. Remember Charlottesville, the Tiki Toy March, right? When they killed one progressive, decent woman, and when Trump was questioned about all this, he said, "Well, hell, there were good people on both sides." I don't understand that one. I'll never figured that one out. You're in an organization uh, of which one of the basic tenets is that Jews are evil and should be killed and blah, blah, blah. How are they good people? How do you equate being a Nazi or a Ku Klux Klan member with being an anti-racist marcher? You know, someone has to explain that to me. But Governor Shapiro, I don't like hypocrisy. And that's why I call you out on that. Because it seems to me, as I said on our last conversation I did, that the thing that caused Mr. Mamdami all this grief was because he said that if elected mayor, he wasn't going anywhere. See, he did not say that he wouldn't go to Israel. He just said that he was not going anywhere because if he was lucky enough to be elected mayor of New York, his job is to try and fix New York. Right? That means you fix it for the Jews, you fix it for the blacks, you fix it for the Latinos, you fix it for the Irish, you fix it for the Italians, you fix it for the Arab Americans, right? You fix it for people from El Paso, the people who live in New York City. And for that, Governor Shapiro, you and your ilk have given this man nothing but grief. And I think that's fucking disgusting. And it's a great indication of what's wrong with the mainstream Democratic Party. Now, Israel, the government of Israel, not every Jew walking on the planet, but the government of Israel is guilty of genocide. Okay? Now, if you don't know what genocide is, then I suggest that you need to look it up. All right? I get real pissed on this because I gave up my career in the Navy because I was too thin-skinned. I had a great life in the Navy until I got to my last command. And unfortunately, those were the people I wound up going to war with. Okay, First Gulf War. And I was this, I got so sick of the anti-Latino and the anti-Jewish comments and attacking women with college degrees who were officers. I got tired of that shit. You know, I wrote the National NAACP. I put a letter to my commanding officer, and I just got sick of it. So when I had the chance to leave and go into the reserve, that's what I did. After what, about 12, 11 years regular Navy, okay? That particular squadron at that particular place, Jacksonville, Florida, because Florida, that's the headquarters between them and Texas. That's the headquarters for America's new Nazis, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, and I look forward, even though I know it was a chance I might not come back because that's the way war is. But I was more, I was so happy to be able, to know I wasn't going to have to come back to Jacksonville, Florida. To be quite frank about it, I lost my boss, Lieutenant Commander Mike Spiker, the only American killed in aerial combat. Okay, so I know what the hell I'm talking about. So when I hear people like you, the blowhard, and talk about anti-Semitism after watching Donald Trump in action for the last 10 years, it really pisses me off. Okay, it's personal with me. Okay, so I would suggest that you and the rest of you Democrats, like that senator from Michigan, former, I believe he was former CIA or something like that. Anyway, folks like you need to really think before you shoot your mouth off, number one. And number two, you need to look at the horrifying pictures that are coming out of Gaza today. All right. And third thing, learn the history of how this whole mess started in the first place. Okay? And be a little more careful and a little bit respectful of people. Because when you talk about people, right, and you don't know what you're talking about, you make yourself look like a jackass. Okay? And that goes for your one of your Democratic senators there in Pennsylvania, what's his name? Fetterman. Okay. So I just, that's something else I wanted to get off my chest, by the way. Now, in terms of the election coming up in November, I will say this. If you are a working New Yorker and you're not supporting Mr. Mamdami, hey, look, this is a democracy. You do what you want to do. But quite frankly, I would see you as a person who basically votes against your own self-interest. We had Cuomo as governor. Uh, it was thought that he did a decent job with the COVID epidemic. Now we're starting to hear things about, well, maybe everything that he said was going along nice and smooth wasn't that smooth. Okay. I respect the fact that he had like regular, news conferences, etc. Okay. But I don't, as a New Yorker, right? As a native New Yorker, I didn't get any real big thrill, I'm the guy being mayor, right? Uh, as far as the other gentleman, what is that? Hell's Angels, the Guardians, right? Yeah, they did some nice work in the '80s, both in Chicago and here in New York. But yeah, well, we're talking about being a mayor, and he kind of reminds me of the guy that you go into the bar and he's sitting at the end of the bar and he's basically talking about, well, they need to do this, they need to do that. I'm sorry, I just don't see it, right? I think that Mamdami has a better handle on what New Yorkers need, being out of the, being an assemblyman, right? Understanding his district and the rest of the districts in New York City. And I think that he deserves a shot. It's really that simple. That's how I feel, you know. And no one's paying me to say this, believe me. I just, that's just the way I feel. I do a show here. I'm trying to do a talk show that try and basically balance and to inform what's going on in America and what's going on in Africa. And, trying to basically, you know, let each one know what's going on with the other. All right. Because I'll tell you this. Now, here you might disagree, but Africa is the future. Okay. And if you pay attention to world affairs like I do, and you see what's happening with Europe and you see what's happening with the rest of the world, you got, you only have a couple of biggies. You have Asia, you have India. Well, India is a part of Asia, right? So you have Asia, you have, um, gee, that's really about it. Latin America, if they can ever get from underneath the thumb of American business, and you have Africa, right? I fear that America has great potential, but we're still busy playing racial games. You still got people running around like the South shall rise again, and all sort of mentality. So I think the happiest place will be Africa, right? I mean, I think they have a huge population, and most of these people are like under the age of what, 20? So it's gonna be here, one way or another, right? Now, I ain't got no respect. I ain't got no use for Donald Trump, but the man, he can smell the money. Okay, he can smell the money, right? Most of these African countries are incredibly wealthy in terms of minerals and resources, right? I think all they have to do is basically unite, and that's it. I know that there are some in Europe and America that they fear that. They shouldn't. They shouldn't. If you treat people with respect, you'll be surprised how well things can work out. But that's why I'm here. That's why I'm trying to start my business here. Okay? Ain't that what you're supposed to do? Right? Go with a business person, you got an idea for a business, you go where you think there's potential. The continent of Africa is, I don't think you can, there's not an instrument built that can manage to measure the potential that exists in the African continent. That's just a fact. You don't have to take my word for it, right? Look it all up. Okay. Now, one thing I gotta squeeze in somehow. Trump and the Republicans and this business about woke. I haven't heard yet one of those bastards give an intelligent explanation. What the hell is woke? Does it mean that you care about injustice? Does it mean that you want to, I don't know, make sure that American kids can eat, right? Don't have to go to bed hungry? That people have health care? That people are treated fairly with dignity and justice? Well, if that's what woke means, then yes, I'm big time woke. And if you are an elected official in the United States government, the real question needs to be asked is, why aren't you woke? Okay, now, got that off my chest. Now, but getting back to this Mamdami thing, let me call out something to you. They had a vote not too long ago in the United Nations. The vote was about the issue of hunger, all right, starvation, little things like that. A vote was taken that eating, right? Did I write that down verbatim? Let's see here. Okay. Yes. That being able to eat is a human right, right? We're all supposed to be decent people. Uh, Here in America, some of us claim to follow the whole Judeo-Christian Islamic ethic, Sermon on the Mount, all that good stuff, bless the poor, feed the hungry. So somebody, the UN comes up with this thing, yeah, we're going to vote on this, that, human beings eating is a human right. You know what? Only two countries in the world voted against that. Guess who? The United States and Israel. Think about that. Now you have some of these right wingers talk about, oh, well, people are not patriotic. They're not proud of being American, blah, 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 blah. Let me ask you this. Should any person be proud of a country that won't even, for the show of it or signify, right? Saying that human beings have a right to eat. And America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, said no. So in America, you don't have a right to eat. I didn't say it. The ambassador to the United States said that. And I can understand why Israel didn't want to vote no, what's going on in Gaza. But America, we did a vote like that? You think about that. Think about that the next time Trump or some other knucklehead Republican talks about somebody being woke. Think about that. and then look in the child's face. Listen, this is Bob Gums with Concerned Forum. Be good to each other. Take care of each other. Peace.